There's orangutan in my bedroom and I don't know what to do. She plays with all my teddies and keeps borrowing my shoe. She destroys all of my houseplants and she keeps on shouting, ooh. She throws away my chocolate and she howls at my shampoo. There's orangutan in my bedroom and I don't want her to stay. So I told the naughty orangutan that she had to go away. Orangutan in my bedroom, just before you go, why were you in my bedroom? I really want to know. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He destroyed all of our trees for your food and your shampoo. There's a human in my forest and I don't know what to do. He took away my mother and I'm scared he'll take me too. There are humans in my forest and I don't know what to do. They're burning it for palm oil. So I thought I'd stay with you. Orangutan in my bedroom, now I do know what to do. I'll fight to save your home and I'll stop you feeling blue. I'll share your story far and wide so others can fight too. Orangutan in my bedroom, I swear it on the stars. The future's not yet written, but I'll make sure it is ours.
Hey, what's going on?
It's mine, Daddy. Noah keeps taking away from me.
Noah, give it back.
No.
Noah, give it back.
No.
I said give it back now. Noah!
Larry, what the hell are you...
Larry!
Larry, you can't just... Oh,
Larry! Oh, are you all right? How did you...
Larry! Righto, what's going on here?
Oh, sir, I'm arrested. Oh!
The Slap, Part 2.
To talk with us more about Brexit, I'm joined now by Laura Shields. She's a spokesperson for the lobby group British in Europe. Ms Shields, thanks very much for speaking to France 24. I mean, news just coming in for us here. Dominic Raab resigning. Does that come as a surprise to you?
No, I just think it's an indication of the current chaos and instability that is gripping British politics when it comes to negotiating the exit from the EU. And I think what's really important in all of this is that the agreement that has been put forward and negotiated and supposedly agreed between the EU and the UK negotiators is only a political agreement. It has no legal weight. And if there is no deal, it means that there are no rights for citizens in the UK who are European, and it means that there are no citizens' rights for Europeans, for British citizens living in Europe, of which there are 1.2 million. So this deal is far from certain, and Dominic Raab's resignation is just a reflection of that broader instability.
I mean, let's flesh this out a little bit further. You touched on citizens' rights there. That's clearly what your lobby group is dealing with. What are your main concerns when it comes to Brexit as a whole?
So our primary concern for the group that I'm involved with has always been ongoing free movement. And the reason for that is that if you are a young person living in Europe or you need to cross borders for work, which 80% of our members do, then we're not getting that guaranteed in the withdrawal agreement. So basically what's on offer at the moment is country locking British people who live in Europe to the country that they currently live and work in. However, as I mentioned before, 4 in 5 of our members are working age or younger, so they do need free movement for work. And for example, our deputy chair, Fiona Godfrey, lives in Luxembourg and she crosses the border every single day to work in and across different European countries. So this is a huge body blow. And let's not forget that we were promised, first by vote leave and then the UK and EU negotiators, that nothing would change in terms of our day-to-day lives. And free movement is not in the withdrawal agreement, and we have no confidence that it will be negotiated as part of the future relationship.
Ms Shields, where does all of this leave the people's vote and this idea of perhaps, a second referendum? Is that something that your lobby group will now get behind?
Well, we're very conflicted because obviously this deal, no matter how bad, is some kind of safety net for our members. But we have always said it was inadequate and that the only way to fully protect our members and also British friends and family who we care about in the UK was to remain in the EU. So given the sort of febrile atmosphere in the UK and the uncertainty that we're finding ourselves in at the moment, we'll be keeping our options open. We'll be looking at whether or not we come out to support the people's vote more fully, but we will also be working with the European Parliament to try and strengthen the existing citizens' rights agreement before it gets voted on, because we do think it would be reckless to throw away any kind of meager protections that some of our members, many of whom are vulnerable pensioners and have disabilities and dependents. So we do need to take that into account as well.
The UK Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab has resigned. It comes after Prime Minister Theresa May secured backing from her cabinet last night on her Brexit deal. However, Mr Raab said he cannot, in good conscience, support the proposed agreement for two reasons. The first, he says, is over the proposed solutions to the Northern Irish border, and then it's all about the customs union issues. These were two key sticking points during the formal negotiations. The resignation has sent the pound sharply lower, down by more than 1% against both the US dollar and the euro. At the moment, we've got the dollar trade at support at 127.85, pretty much on target on that line. The next line of support coming through at 126.61. On the euro, this is sterling down against the European single currency, very close to support at 113.07, current trade at 113.21. Mrs May said securing the cabinet's support on her withdrawal deal was a decisive step. However, according to the BBC, the cabinet was far from unanimous, with 9 ministers speaking out. May now faces an uphill struggle to get a parliamentary majority on her 585-page deal. That's if she manages to survive until then, with suggestions that the Prime Minister could face a no-confidence vote as soon as this week. Meanwhile, on the continent, if nothing extraordinary happens, the European Council is expected to meet on the 25th of November to formalise the Brexit agreement. As JP Morgan puts it, now is when the dance of the deal begins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with permission, I would like to update the House on our negotiations to leave the European Union. First, I want to pay tribute to my right honourable friends, the members for Esher and Walton and Tatton. Delivering Brexit involves difficult choices for all of us. We do not agree on all of those choices, but I respect their views, and I would like to thank them sincerely for all that they have done. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we agreed the provisional terms of our exit from the European Union, set out in the draft withdrawal agreement. We also agreed the broad terms of our future relationship in an outline political declaration. I know it's been a frustrating process. It has forced us to confront some very difficult issues. But a good Brexit, a Brexit which is in the national interest, is possible. We have persevered and have made a decisive breakthrough. Once a final deal is agreed, I will bring it to Parliament, and I will ask MPs to consider the national interest and give it their backing. Voting against a deal would take us all back to square one. It would mean more uncertainty, more division, and a failure to deliver on the decision of the British people that we should leave the EU. So, Mr. Speaker, the choice is clear. We can choose to leave with no deal, we can risk no Brexit at all, or we can choose to unite and support the best deal that can be negotiated. This deal, a deal that ends free movement, takes back control of our borders, laws and money, delivers a free trade area for goods with zero tariffs, leaves the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy, delivers an independent foreign and defence policy while retaining the continued security cooperation to keep our people safe, maintains shared commitments to high standards, protects jobs, honours the integrity of our United Kingdom and delivers the Brexit the British people voted for. I choose to deliver for the British people. I choose to do what is in our national interest, and I commend this statement to the House.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of her statement. Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister comes before us today trying to sell us a deal that is already dead in the water. Not even her own Brexit Secretary could stand over it. Now, Mr Speaker, to lose one Brexit Secretary is one thing. To lose two in a matter of months illuminates the chaotic nature of this Tory government. The number 10 front door has become a revolving one. You know, the Prime Minister talks about taking back control. She can't even control her own cabinet. As I said yesterday, the Prime Minister is desperate and is increasingly looking defeated. What is absolutely shocking is that Scotland is not once mentioned in the document. Not once, Prime Minister, not once has the unique characteristics of Scotland's devolved settlement been worthy of mention.
Order. The leader of the Scottish National Party must be heard, and heard with courtesy. And indeed, very grateful for your sedentary observations, Mr Graham, but I don't think they greatly add to the quality of our deliberations. Everybody will be heard. Mr Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Not once has Scotland's unique characteristics in the devolved settlement been worthy of mention, and yet 100 mentions of Northern Ireland, mentions of Gibraltar, of Cyprus, of the Isle of Man, but no reference to Scotland. Utter contempt has once again been shown to the Scottish Government, its Parliament and its people. Mr Speaker, differentiated deals for Northern Ireland means Scotland can have its own differentiated deal. If Northern Ireland can stay in the single market, why not Scotland, Prime Minister? The Scottish Government have published compromise documents calling for just this. The Scottish Parliament has affirmed that position. Why does the Prime Minister ignore the democratically expressed position of the Scottish Government? What has happened to the claim of a partnership of equals?
Never happened.
Why are the desires of Scotland being ignored when we know that a differentiated settlement can be delivered? Why does the Prime Minister stand in the face of the legitimate demands of the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament? Well, you know, the Prime Minister can shake her head, but it's a matter of fact, it's a matter of reality. Show some respect to the devolved institutions. The price... Well, you can bay and you can shout and you can talk about it being dreadful, but why was the Scottish Government not consulted just as Gibraltar was before the Prime Minister went to Cabinet yesterday? Mr Speaker, the price Scotland would be forced to pay is far too high, with lost jobs, household income slashed and our NHS under threat. Now is the time to get realistic and put sensible options back on the table, such as remaining in the single market. Mr Speaker, the only credible compromise for which the SNP has consistently made the case for. This deal is dead in the water. It is now clear that there is not a majority for this deal or a no deal. The Prime Minister must go back to Brussels and extend Article 50 and tell Brussels that we must remain in the single market and the customs union. Anything else, Mr Speaker, will lead to economic chaos and crisis. Prime Minister, do the right thing and we will work with you. Stop the clock and go back to Brussels.
Back in 2016, people liked to pretend that Brexit was simple. We'd have offers piling up on the Prime Minister's table. It would be the easiest deal in human history. And it wouldn't even matter, because we weren't going to vote to leave anyway. In reality, things haven't been quite so simple. Even with 19 weeks to go until the date the UK is set to leave, and although May's cabinet seemed to have agreed to her deal, it's still not finalised yet. At the time of writing and recording this video, it's not fully clear what the result of that meeting was or what the contents of the proposed deal is. As such, we'll be talking generally about whether the Prime Minister will be able to push a deal through the House of Commons. We'll discuss the details of May's cabinet meeting and the proposed deal in a future video, but for now I want to purely focus on how May would get a deal through Parliament. Getting support for any deal would be hard, as the Prime Minister is far from having universal approval, with other politicians calling for her to chuck Chequers in favour of a simple trade deal, or a Canada Plus deal, or a Norway-style deal, or a Switzerland-style deal, or no deal, or just forget the referendum and let's do it all again with the people's vote. Okay, so you get it, there's confusion. We've all lived our lives in this post-referendum Brexit confusion for about 2.5 years. We know it's confusing. The bad news is that even if May can get her cabinet to agree to a deal, and if it's accepted by the EU at the EU summit, that's not where the drama ends. It then has to pass to the UK's Parliament. That's because back in December 2017, Parliament amended the European Union Withdrawal Bill, making changes which require the deal to be put to Parliament before it can be passed. She needs a majority of MPs in the House of Commons to agree to the deal for it to pass to the next stage. There are 650 MPs in the House of Commons, so you might think a majority of the House would be 326 MPs. However, 11 MPs won't take part in the vote. Those are the Speaker and his deputies, and the Sinn Féin MPs. That's because the Speaker and his deputies aren't allowed to vote, and Sinn Féin have a long-standing policy of abstention. Sinn Féin are a political party from both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. They hold 7 seats in the House of Commons, but due to their political beliefs, they abstain from sitting in Parliament. Sinn Féin are an Irish Republican party, who believe in the reunification of Ireland and Northern Ireland. As such, they dispute the power that the UK's Parliament in Westminster has over Northern Ireland, so not sitting in their house is their way of protesting the union. So without Sinn Féin, the Speaker and his assistants, how does the maths work out? So with those people deducted, there's 639 MPs who can cast a vote, meaning the Prime Minister needs 320 votes for the deal to progress. In this diagram, each circle represents 10 MPs in the House of Commons. To have a majority, the party needs to reach the dark circle. In the average government, getting the simple majority which is needed to pass the Brexit deal would be pretty easy. The vast majority of parliaments in the last few decades have had one party ruling with a majority. This means that for them to get a majority in the House of Commons, the leader would simply need to rely on their own MPs to back their proposal. A reasonably simple task. The thing is that when May's government was formed back in 2017, they only had a minority of MPs in Parliament. May's government has been supported by the DUP, whose MPs have often voted alongside the Conservatives, but it's nowhere near as easy to get a majority when you're relying on a somewhat informal alliance with another party. When you take away the people that can't vote, May's Conservative Party has 316 MPs, falling just short of the 320 votes they need to progress the deal. Therefore, the Conservatives will absolutely rely on other parties to back the deal for it to pass to the next stage. I don't need to tell you again that that won't be easy for May. Making things harder is the fact that we know it won't even be easy for May to get her own party on side. We can project that about 240 to 250 Conservative MPs will vote in line with May, supporting the bill that she puts forward. But that leaves about 80 MPs who are unlikely to support May's deal. These people fall into two opposing camps. On one side you have the Conservative MPs who are very pro-Brexit and want to see the hardest form of Brexit possible. There are likely between 40 and 80 MPs who will fall into this very pro-Brexit group. We've talked about the ERG in one of our previous videos about Brexit deals, but this group, the European Research Group, are unlikely to support May's bill. This group of hard levers won't support any deal which leaves the UK too close to the EU, or the EU's control. It looks likely that whatever deal is reached, it will be too close for the ERG to approve, and as such, their MPs are likely to vote against it. Jacob Rees-Mogg, the chairman of the ERG, commented, "I hope Cabinet will block it. If not, Parliament will block it." Mogg even wrote a letter to his fellow MPs after reading May's proposed deal, recommending they reject it. So if I were the Prime Minister, I wouldn't be holding my breath waiting for ERG backing. On the other side of the coin are Conservatives who are looking to see the UK remain within the EU, or at least stay very close to the EU. This group is smaller, with at least 12 MPs on side, including Anna Salisbury, Jo Johnson, and others who don't support May's Brexit plan and want to see a closer alignment with the EU. Joe Johnson even resigned from his role as Rail Minister last week to protest the Brexit negotiations. In his resignation letter, he went in on May, saying that to present the nation with a choice between two deeply unattractive outcomes, vassalage and chaos, is a failure of British statecraft on a scale unseen since the Suez Crisis. My constituents in Orpington deserve better than this from their government. So it looks unlikely that these groups on either side of the Brexit debate will support May's deal. They both dislike the government's plans for opposing reasons, but they're both likely to reject the plan regardless. One other group of Conservatives to quickly touch on is the 13 Scottish Conservatives in the House of Commons. While their views vary, all of them want an outcome which is good for Scotland. One area where this comes into play is fishing. Fishing rights are one of the key areas in Brexit negotiations, with pro-Brexit politicians saying that the UK shouldn't allow EU fishermen to continue accessing UK waters. This is a particularly important issue in Scotland. Therefore, Scottish Conservatives signed a letter addressed to the Prime Minister saying that they wouldn't support a deal which gives the EU continued access. Meaning that depending on the contents of the deal which makes it to Parliament, May might not be able to rely on these 13 MPs' support. However, there's been a lot of pressure on the UK to include clauses which grant EU fishermen access. So balancing the demands of the EU with May's need for support in the Commons could be difficult. So all of this leaves May relying on other parties more than ever. Let's be generous and say that May has 250 MPs whose support she can rely on. That still leaves her falling 70 MPs short of the required 320 votes. The obvious group which May could go to drum up support is the DUP. The DUP are her current allies in Parliament, propping up her government. However, they've said that they won't support any deal which has different terms for Northern Ireland. The DUP are a Northern Irish party who support the union between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and as such they're very much in favour of Northern Ireland staying close to the rest of the UK. So any deal which treats Northern Ireland in a different way to the rest of the UK wouldn't be acceptable to the DUP. They don't want to set a precedent of Northern Ireland being different from the rest of the UK, and thus would reject a deal which treats them differently. This is going to be a major issue for May. One of the biggest issues in the negotiation process so far has been the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. This border, post-Brexit, will be an external border for the EU, and because of this, it's possible that there will have to be a hard border put up between the two countries. This is something that no one wants, as it will go against the Good Friday Agreement and could reignite tensions in the region. Therefore, the EU has called on the UK to agree to a backstop for Northern Ireland. We discussed this backstop in another video, but essentially it's a guarantee that a hard border between the countries won't return. The problem for the DUP is that the backstop all but requires the UK and EU to treat Northern Ireland differently. According to reports, May's deal does treat Northern Ireland separately, so the DUP likely won't be keen. I'm going to ask potentially the easiest question in Brexit. Can the Prime Minister rely on the opposition to support her Brexit deal? You don't have to know a ton about Brexit, or even UK politics, to know that relying on Labour for a big issue like this probably isn't the smartest move. May will likely have the backing of a very small number of Labour MPs, but we're talking about a very small number. These are MPs who are heavily pro-Brexit, but in the Labour Party, there aren't too many MPs like that. Back in 2017, the Labour Party said that they would get their MPs to reject any deal which doesn't meet its 6 tests. These tests are: does it ensure a strong and collaborative future with the EU? Does it deliver the exact same benefits as we currently have as members of the Single Market and Customs Union? Does it ensure the fair management of migration in the interests of the economy and communities? Does it defend rights and protections and prevent a race to the bottom? Does it protect national security and our capability to tackle cross-border crime? Does it deliver for all regions of the UK? Whether Labour's tests seem fair and reasonable to you probably comes down to your party allegiances and how you feel about Brexit. One thing we can all agree on is that it's probably not likely that May's deal will meet all 6 tests. Specifically, test number 2. David Davis did promise that the deal would deliver the exact same benefits, but I think that any reasonable person can agree that this isn't possible. There's no realistic scenario in which the deal which is offered to the UK provides all the benefits of single market and customs union membership. As such, it's expected that Labour MPs will vote against the bill. The only hope that May has is for the Labour MPs who represent seats who've strongly voted to leave. These MPs might feel the pressure to back May's deal if the alternative is no deal. The MPs aren't likely to be explicitly asked, do you prefer May's deal or do you want a no deal? but considering how late in negotiations it will be when Parliament get to vote, voting no to May's deal will essentially be the same as saying that you prefer no deal at all, as it's not realistic to expect a better deal to be reached in such a short time frame. Therefore, some Labour MPs might rather vote to support May's deal than be seen to support no deal. The only other group that the PM could turn to are the smaller parties. Besides the DUP, who we've already discussed, all of these parties are generally very pro-EU, and therefore are very unlikely to support the PM's plans. So let's pull all of this information together. Remember, May needs to get 320 votes for the deal to pass the House. May has around 240 Conservative MPs who are almost certainly going to support her plan. Also, we can be pretty certain around 20 Tories will vote against their leader. You have the vast majority of Labour who are going to vote against May, with a few rebels who are likely to be on May's side. Then you have the smaller pro-EU parties who will very likely vote against May. This leaves May pretty short of the 320 votes she needs. It's possible that she can scrape together a majority if she can pull together the pro-Brexit and pro-Remain sides of her party, along with creating a deal that keeps the Scots and the DUP happy, and potentially pulling over some of Labour's MPs from pro-Brexit constituencies. But that's a whole lot of ifs. When this video was recorded, we still didn't know a whole lot about May's proposed deal, but to pull this off would require creating a whole lot more party unity than the Tories have achieved in years, while also avoiding the need for a backstop, keeping the Irish border open, and getting Labour on side. Considering the Prime Minister seemed to struggle to get a majority of her own cabinet to sign off on the deal, it could be difficult for May to pull this off and convince Parliament to back her deal. The consequences of not getting a deal through Parliament could be pretty dire for May and her Conservatives.
La parola all'onorevole Farage.
Well, Mrs Merkel, many of my Eurosceptic colleagues have been booing you this morning, but they shouldn't be in a way, because the British should be cheering you. Without you, we'd never have made it over the line with Brexit, and I want to thank you very much for that. And of course, many of these Eurosceptic groups on the right, the centre and the left will come back here after the next European elections in huge numbers, directly as a result of your immigration and asylum policy. Your weak and cope led to a huge migrant tide, indeed a stampede, that came across the Mediterranean. Young men coming from very different cultures who were not going to integrate. Young men, none of whom would have qualified as being genuine refugees. And I think in many ways, we looked at it in the referendum and we said, we don't want to be part of an increasingly German-dominated European Union, and we certainly don't want to pay the price for Mrs Merkel's errors. And I believe, having heard you today and listening to senior French politicians over the last couple of days, that for us leaving the European Union is now indeed a liberation. It's a European Union that we're told is now to become an empire, a militarised European Union, an undemocratic European Union, a European Union that seeks to continually expand to the east, a European Union that has launched a new Cold War against the United States of America, a European Union that tries to rewrite history. And I think 100 years on from the armistice, we should be genuinely worried. The idea that this new military union is somehow a recipe for peace, I suggest you all sit back and think a little bit more carefully. Maybe you should all reread history. The European project was set up to stop German domination. What you've seen today is a naked takeover bid. So I think Brexit becomes a necessity after this. And for the rest of the countries, Mrs Merkel, you've had a long, successful career. But your political decision to open up the doors unconditionally is the worst decision we've seen in post-war politics in Europe. Is it not time for you at last to admit that you were wrong? Is it not time for you to say to German communities and many others, I'm sorry for what I've done to you and the problems I've inflicted upon you for many decades to come?
Northern Ireland's always been different. In the sense that it has a land border, always has. Devolution occurred first in Northern Ireland. Some have suggested, for example, that Scotland could have a similar deal to Northern Ireland. That just shifts the problem, the border between England and Scotland. It doesn't deal with the issue of the border in Ireland. I think we have to be flexible as far as Northern Ireland is concerned. When it comes to biosecurity, for example, Northern Ireland is different. It's part of the island of Ireland in terms of biosecurity, and therefore there are checks on animals and food moving into Northern Ireland from GB. Similarly, the energy market is an island-wide market on the island of Ireland. So Northern Ireland is a little detached from GB in any event. For me, what's hugely important is we move pretty swiftly to a situation where there is no room for grievance. What does that mean? Well, there needs to be set up, as I mentioned before, a council of ministers where we all have a voice. It can be an equal voice in terms of voting, and I know that Mark Drakeford has suggested a weighted voting system to reflect the size of England, which I think is perfectly sensible. But if there's any suggestion that Westminster is accreting powers to itself or running over the smaller nations, I think there are dangers there. At the end of the day, the UK is a union, just like the EU is a union. It's older, no question about that, but it's still in many ways a multinational union. It's a union of support. That's why I think it's hugely important that this is done, that we recognise that the UK has to change in order to reflect its constituent parts and in order for people to feel that they're being listened to.
The devolution that should have been automatic raises the question of how serious this government is about devolution. And if they don't believe in it, then people will start to draw conclusions. There is more centralisation going to take place in Whitehall as a result of leaving the European Union, because all these powers are going back to Whitehall from Brussels. And so in relation to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, this is a far more centralised Britain that you would have after March next year. And if these powers are not devolved, then they're held in the centre, and the principle of devolution seems to be at risk. But the other issue that I think will concern people, could you not find a way and why are they not discussing a way of giving devolved parliaments or assemblies access to Europe? I mean, for non-devolved areas, why can't the Scottish Parliament or the Welsh Assembly talk to the European Union about measures that would be relevant? I mentioned an investment bank. If Britain doesn't want it, Scotland would want an investment bank, want to have a joint venture with the European Investment Bank, banned under the devolution settlement because it's a foreign treaty. But I see no reason why that shouldn't be able to happen. But what I'm suggesting is not the proposal itself. I'm suggesting we should be thinking about these long-term issues. And instead of a debate that is internally driven by what suits the backseat drivers, the hard Brexiteers of the Conservative Party, because that's what it is. They are the English nationalist tail, if you like, wagging the British bulldog on this occasion. I mean, that's what's happening.
Torkel Crichton, Daily Record. Gordon, you talk about a second EU referendum, inevitably. You must talk about a second Scottish independence referendum. I'm also intrigued by this idea that Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland could bypass Whitehall, could have their own relationships with the European Union. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Scotland is different in this respect. There is no doubt that the Scottish Parliament has ambitions, including Labour, possibly some Conservatives, certainly Liberals as well as Nationalists, to have a role in some of these decisions that would be classified as out of bounds for the Parliament at the moment. And I personally think that you've got to be flexible about these issues. What I've noticed in the last 2 years is a far less flexible attitude to how the union should develop in the future. So you have all the rhetoric about our precious union. These are the words you always get, our precious union. But actually the openness to honouring the devolution settlement has diminished, and that's the problem. So I don't see why the Scottish Parliament shouldn't be able to sign a treaty with the European Union on a devolved matter, not on non-devolved matters, but on a devolved matter. And I don't see why, even if we were outside the European Union, that would be prevented. And I don't see that in devolved areas that Westminster should try to say that this is not possible. So I think that's an open debate about what should happen. Now, again, I'm what here I'm trying to do is say there are many options open to us as a country, but we're not having a debate on these at the moment. We're in a very narrow area of whether, and the area is actually, can we get a short-term temporary fix so that the government can actually say that on March the 29th next year they've left the European Union and yet all the questions are unresolved. We should be having a debate that opens up these issues so that the general public can have a view on them.
And a second independence referendum?
I think that's unlikely at the moment.
Here on the aisle.
Thank you. Sean Spears from Green Alliance. A question on devolution. You point out that agriculture and environment are devolved, but of course they were devolved when we were in the European single market. If we leave the European single market and come to have a sort of UK single market, how do you make that work?
Well, this is the issue, isn't it? I mean,
I wonder if you had the answer.
I mean, who decides the parameters of the UK single market now? Because if you've devolved agriculture in principle, as well as some of the powers to the Scottish Parliament, and you've assumed, or people have assumed, that all agriculture would be devolved if we left the European Union, then the Scottish Parliament, the Welsh Assembly and the Northern Ireland Assembly have got to have a role in how you design the internal market of the United Kingdom. And that's what the issue is. The government wants to say centrally, we will define all the rules of the single market, whereas Carwyn Jones, he's been here, hasn't he? And he took a legal action. He took an action in court against the UK government, saying that automatically these powers should have come to Wales. And I don't know if that's resolved in the courts yet, but he believes that under the Constitution setting up the Welsh Assembly, or giving it its latest powers, he has the right to have these powers under law. And then it's for the government of the day to talk to the various assemblies and the Scottish Parliament about how you construct the single market and how you can get an agreement on that.
In what sounded a tiny bit like a threat to Mrs May in Downing Street, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon talked today about preparing the ground for another independence referendum if Scotland wasn't able to stay in the European Union. She said a draft referendum bill will be published next week. That doesn't necessarily mean there'll be another vote, of course, but she certainly was putting down a marker.
Nicola Sturgeon is on a mission to put the brakes on Theresa May's hard Brexit.
If that's the insecure, unstable prospect we face as part of the UK, then no one will have the right to deny Scotland the chance to choose a better.
She told a delighted conference an independence referendum bill will be published for consultation next week, and dared the Prime Minister to call her bluff.
If you think for one single second that I am not serious about doing what it takes to protect Scotland's interests, then think again.
But Scotland's unionists are less impressed.
A clear majority of Scots have no wish to return to the divisive referendums of the past. They want to move on, and none of the questions that Brexit raises are answered by ripping Scotland out of our own Union of Nations that's worth more than 4 times more to us in terms of trade.
And one recent study produced by the Taxpayers Alliance returned some alarming numbers. They report Scotland had a deficit of £14.8 billion last year. That's 9.5% of its GDP. The limit for countries joining the EU is 3%. To get to that level, the Taxpayers Alliance pressure group says Scotland could raise the basic rate of income tax from 20% to 39%, or cut its health spending by 82%.
With all this tough talk from Nicola Sturgeon today, she hasn't yet committed to having another independence referendum. That hesitancy is because the SNP are just not sure that they have the numbers yet to make sure they would win it this time. So I've come to Nicola Sturgeon's own constituency, just a few miles from the conference, to find out if there is an appetite for Indie Ref 2.
Atif and Shabana run an estate agents and, like the majority of Scots, voted to remain in the UK and the EU.
I think people are probably getting fed up now with the referendum after referendum, but not enough information.
But Shabana thinks Brexit could be damaging for Scotland.
That's going to actually possibly have an effect on how people are going to vote when it comes to independence.
Do you think that people could be pushed towards independence if Brexit is...
Possibly.
Nicola Sturgeon isn't ready to gamble on Indie Ref 2 yet. but she has raised the stakes in negotiations with Theresa May. Peter Smith, News at 10, Glasgow.
It feels a long way from Westminster here, but still not far enough to escape the politics. And now people are contemplating the prospect of another big decision, like Ray, who voted against independence in 2014. Have you got the appetite for another referendum?
Not at all, because I think referenda tend to be so divisive. People wanted to take sides, and I think the last time it was bad enough. I think doing it again, particularly at this time when there's so many problems, I think it's just not the thing that people want now.
Only 40% of voters here wanted to leave the UK last time. But politics students Joanna and Connor told me that result's not relevant now. Brexit has changed the goalposts.
I think there's a bit of a consensus for leaving the UK in our politics class.
Yeah, I think we're all very similar. We all think it's a very good idea to stay in the EU but leave the UK.
Many business owners here agree. Down the road they're selling sheds made from Swedish timber. They import 200,000 tonnes of it a year. Staying in Europe is the boss's top priority.
As it is now, the prices are rising due to uncertainty, and if we're taken out of the EU, then it's inevitable that these prices will rise twofold, and probably prices well out of the market.
But in the workshop, there are mixed feelings.
I just feel it's not right. How can you, be for not leaving Europe, but be for leaving Britain? It just doesn't make sense to me.
What do you think the result would be?
Of a second referendum for Scotland, I think yes, might just have it, but it's more because of people being fed up with the way the UK government have treated Scotland than actually wanting independence.
The political landscape has moved. Will another referendum mean another giant shift? Tessa Chapman, 5 News, Perth.
This is my family, the Horvath family.
And this is my mum, Ursula, and we are the Novak family.
This is my brother, and this is my mum, and my dad's at work, and that's my family.
If you thought you'd heard it all on Brexit, come into these homes. Meet these young people.
What are you going to be, Kitty?
I'm going to be a Broadway star.
Born in Eastern Europe,
Meow.
raised in Scotland.
Half of me is Polish and half of it's not, I guess.
A voice, they say, almost entirely missing from the Brexit debate.
I don't think it's been heard at all, at least not by the politicians.
It's tea time in Airdrie for Kitty's family. She's one of more than 600,000 children living in the UK who were born elsewhere in the EU.
How would you describe your nationality?
It's really hard because I'm always like, I'm Hungarian, I was born there and I'll always be Hungarian. But at the same time, I feel pretty Scottish sometimes.
In the East End of Glasgow, student Marta and her mum.
Do you ever feel sort of torn between the two different parts of your identity?
Yeah, when I go to Poland, I feel sort of like an outcast because like my accent's a bit different when I speak Polish as well.
And in Dalgety Bay in Fife, 13-year-old Olivia.
People that don't necessarily know me that much, when they find out that I'm not from here, they're kind of surprised. It kind of feels nice that I know that someone would think I'm from here.
Brexit will not be the biggest event in these young lives.
So, when you came to Scotland, how much English could you speak?
Like 2 words.
They've been turned upside down once already.
How important was it to you at the start to feel like that you fitted in?
Quite a lot. Like, it was quite important to me. In this world, you get judged for everything, so...
When she came to Scotland, Kitty was 9. Her father found work as a plumber. Her mother sorts recycled clothes.
1 or 2 times when I'm on the train talking to my mum in Hungarian, like I was on the phone and this woman just started shouting at me saying, "You're in an English-speaking country, why don't you just learn the language?" I just felt really angry, like, why would you say stuff like that? You don't know me. And I can speak English, I speak English perfectly fine, but just because I'm on the phone to my mother, who speaks Hungarian and she speaks English as well, and I'm talking in my mother tongue, which I don't want to lose because that is part of who I am. Like, what gives you the right?
A recent University of Strathclyde study of over 1,000 Eastern European children living in Britain found more than 3/4 had experienced some kind of racist abuse.
I did get a few comments like at the start. People would call me like Polish cow and stuff like that, but it doesn't really,
They call you a Polish cow?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Like 11 or 12.
For these young people, does Brexit feel personal?
Well, I feel like I'm part of the club right now, but I feel like the members of that club are trying to get rid of me. That's what I'm feeling right now. So I feel like, I love the club. I love the club so much, but I feel like the members of the club are trying to get rid of me.
How does it affect how Hungarian you feel?
I just feel like I have to become more Scottish now to fit in with British society and just try to fit in here to make sure I can stay here.
What does that mean, trying to be more Scottish?
Just to act like more like them and act less like Hungarians, so they'll accept me more.
After Brexit, each of these families will be asked to register for what the government calls settled status.
Do you know what the process is after Brexit for what you need to do in terms of the legal stuff?
No, not at all. Does anyone know?
They may find settled status confusing, but all these families say they would apply. The government has been warned it risks a second Windrush generation among thousands who may not.
To what extent are they themselves, these families, even aware of how potentially precarious their situation is?
I don't know if the vast majority of them are aware. I mean, in our study, we investigated these issues with over 1,000 young people. And the sense that we got is that people are worried, and young people are worried about what's going to happen to them. The vast majority of them are not aware of how their status is going to change after Brexit.
Marta, whose mum also works in a clothes sorting factory, would sooner become a British citizen. For each person, over £1,000.
As soon as the Brexit vote happened, we looked into it and stuff. It's so expensive. And we just it's not something we would be able to afford right now.
Does that make you sad that money is a barrier?
I never thought it'd be that expensive actually, just to become a citizen.
For Marta, Kitty and Olivia, Brexit is coming fast. And the world they thought they knew is changing all over again.
Where you're from and stuff like that doesn't define you as a person.
I think this is my place.
I want someone to tell me that I am safe in this country or I'm not going to get kicked out. I just want certainty.
French jam.
French jam, did you hear that? French
Won't be
jam.
able to afford it after Brexit.
From a Brexiteer.
You do know that that'll double in price now, don't you?
Yes.
Of course it won't. The import tax on that, how much have you paid for that?
Yeah, it's for the box.
Shut up, See, you're all just too negative.
Do you want to sharpen ours?
No, just be positive.
I don't trust you with a sharp knife.
These people have said there's going to be visas. You have to have a visa to get into France next year. That's all we get because we go to France every year.
Yeah,
you
I'll
realise
get you some scissors. I'll get you
do
some
realise
scissors.
you'll need a visa? No. How do you know?
Yourself.
I just know, Kelly. You just know. I think largely the families very much were Remainers apart from Mum, so I think we have to not talk about it because I don't want her to feel like she's ganged up on.
Out of the loop.
It worries me at the moment, like you're filming this, because there's so much hatred now towards people that, are outers. I mean, they're being absolutely vile to people, and you think, why? We've all got our own opinions, and the world's a big place, get on with it.
My son-in-law's a butcher, a local butcher. I'm helping him out today, just doing a few deliveries for him. I served in Staffordshire Police for 30 years. Regularly, every week I would say, at least weekly, we would have to accept maybe 10 or 15 illegal immigrants that had jumped off lorries at Hilton Services or wherever they got the opportunity to jump off the lorries, and then they'd be arrested by the traffic police officers. And I believe that a lot of people who voted Brexit thought that they were going to solve that problem by leaving Europe. But in actual fact, that problem has got nothing to do with being a member of the EU. It's illegal immigration. And do I think that there's an underlying racial hatred in this country? No, I don't. I think most people in this country are tolerant. Hello, boys.
Shame they were the only ones that voted, otherwise we might not be in this position.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Did you vote, Adam?
Yeah, well,
no, well, there
you go then.
So they're trying to make it as it was before, but without being part of the European Union.
But you can't do that.
So it's just, that's why it's impossible to strike the deal, isn't it?
I think you've done well under the circumstances. It's all right the Labour turning around and saying, well, we don't want this, we don't want that, but they've come up with no ideas.
She needs to get some back in and go for it.
The trouble is, if you got rid of Theresa May, who would you put in? Certainly I wouldn't vote for Boris Johnson.
Obviously Europe need us as well. So Europe need us as well.
You've either got to make a strong decision and say, right, we're confident that we can go on our own, or you've got to say, no, we need Europe as much as we've done in the past.
There'll be a shortage of English meat. I mean, there's been...
So it will be exported.
Yeah. I mean, the lamb this year has been extortionately pricey because it's all been exported because they get more money for it.
Is that because of the low pound?
Yeah. Myself, little independents like me are going to have to pay more for my products that I've been buying from the local farms for years. Yeah. And that's not really right, is it?
It's Chinese time.
That's not here.
That's nice, you can get it everywhere.
Like chow mein. Any chips? Yeah, please.
What was traffic like when you run today, Dad? Was it?
Traffic was good today.
People don't feel they've got
Yeah,
any
but
input into that.
but how
So people
could-
are now backtracking and thinking, hold on a minute, this isn't actually what I signed up for when I thought we were going to leave.
That's the whole problem, isn't it?
But Heather, it'll be sorted.
All
these issues will be sorted.
Yeah, but you can't...
Isn't it nice?
We've never been here before, so how can you say they're going to be sorted? Because no one knows what they're on about, do they? No one's been here to say that's what's going to happen, this is
It's
not
not
going
going
to
to stay
happen.
up in the air. One way or another.
Yeah, it might be sorted out for good, it might be sorted out for bad.
Well, yeah, it might, but you don't know. But one way or the other, it can be sorted.
So if it's sorted out for bad, what's the point of doing it in the first place?
There's nothing to sort.
But we want our cake and eat it, don't we?
Yeah.
We want to pay less into Europe, but still to vote with Europe and the rest of the world. So why are we leaving the EU?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
There is
Exactly the
only
point.
the EU that you can buy stuff from.
Yeah, of course.
No, but along with the EU, you get things like maternity leave and you get paid sick leave.
We'll still get
you know, well, will we?
Yeah, once we're out, our Parliament will look at all those rules and regulations and laws and say, well, that doesn't apply to us anymore, rescind it.
She's
That
got
does-
to you.
that
She's
doesn't
got
apply.
to you. She has.
No.
It's just accept.
Except he's wrong.
I'm still a Remainer. I want to stay in the EU. I don't believe that our government will do away with the good stuff that's been introduced. Is that
It just feels like there's this massive cultural change that's come along with Brexit. The people that are seen to be taking over and making decisions, there's genuinely no one that I would wish to vote for because I don't identify with any of these people anymore.
I think that there's nobody good to choose from, is there?
But there's only one answer you sided now, and that's everyone's got to side with Theresa May. And none of us know what the right answer is. She's doing her best, and I feel for her, whether we're Conservative, Labour, whatever you are.
Anybody want a glass of white wine? When we get going.
This is quite tame, to be honest.
Wait till we start on religion.
In a fast-moving world, keeping in touch is essential.
But it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg, and it should be possible wherever you are. That's why Parliament is bringing telecoms rules up to date. MEPs want to put an end to expensive calls within the EU. From May 2019, phone calls should be capped at 19 cents and texts at just 6 cents.
In many countries of the European Union, this is going to no substantive decreasing of the cost, which is something that I'm sure the European consumers they will welcome.
It would be easier for customers to monitor their phone use and keep an eye on their bills. Remember, you're not married to your phone provider, so leaving it when you find a better deal should be easier. You could even receive compensation if they are too slow to let you go. Your personal information is precious. This is why Parliament wants to promote secure end-to-end encryption. Web-based services like Skype and WhatsApp will also be covered by the same rules. And because no one likes hanging around for slow internet connections, MEPs want super high-speed 5G to start hitting major European cities in 2020.
Yes, come along then, come along. Come along, young Wombles. Just in time for Womble TV. There we are. Come on. Now we'll just switch it on. Won't take long to warm up, I'm sure.
And when people ask me why I put myself through it, the long hours, the pressure, the criticism, the insults that inevitably go with this job, I tell them this. I do it to root out injustice and to give everyone in our country a voice. And that's why, when I reflect on my time in politics, the things that make me proud are not the positions I've held, the world leaders I've met, the great global gatherings I've attended, but knowing that I made a difference, that I helped those who couldn't be heard.
Oh, yeah. I always like that joke. Oh, what a load of rubbish.
Our goal is simple, a fairer country for all those born here, for those who have chosen to make this their home, and for the generations yet to come. That is why we believe in an independent Scotland. So know this, believe in this, work for this. Hope is possible. A better future is within our grasp. And together we are going to make it happen.
Well, I grew up in a Scotland where the decisions about our future are taken by the people who care most about Scotland, the people who live here.
It hurts 'cause I wanna be with you there. I wrote a poem from your notes and love letters. Through every season I put them together. Then I added the lyrics I wrote in New York to write this love song for the one that I adore. I wrote a poem from your notes and love letters. Through every season I put them together. Then I added the lyrics I wrote in New York to write this love song for the one that I adore. To write this love song for the one that I adore.
Playing now. Leela, undo Leela.
I wish that I could untell you all the things I said, that I never meant. I was angry and I now regret. Wish I could somehow undo all the things I did. I was being selfish, thinking about just what I wanted. Wish I could untell, wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Is it enough? Is it enough? Wish I could untell, wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Could just meet someone. Do you ever wish life had none? No, but can we press rewind? Go back in time, 'cause I would do it different. I would honestly never meant to hurt you. My apologies. Unbreak your heart. Can we push restart? Wish I couldn't tell. Wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Is it enough? Is it enough? Wish I could untell, wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Yo, na 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 na, hey hey, na na na, hey hey. Do you ever, I wish, can we ever undo? Do you ever, I wish, can we ever undo? I wish that I could untell you all the lies I said. You believe them, didn't mean them. I'm so sorry and wish I could somehow undo all the things I did. I was sneaky, yeah I cheated, broke your heart again. Wish I could untell, wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Isn't enough, isn't enough. Wish I could untell, wish I could undo, wish I could unlove. Yo, na 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 na, hey hey, na 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 na, hey hey.
Next up is Steve Blackley, my mother.
Leavenworth, Kansas. Well, my brother, he did crime and took his chances. Well, my sister, she ran from home when she was just 13. And I guess she stayed alone 'cause she ain't been seen. But my mother was a lady who chose to stay. Yes, my mother was a lady every day. My old man, well, he got out and he turned to boozing. He was the wino, and no doubt he was steadily losing. Well, my brother, he found his luck and he missed the big house. And as for me, well, I made my buck. No one dared ask how. Well, my mother, she fell in love with a psycho rider. Black denim trousers and leather gloves. He stood beside her. Well, my brother, he got married to a real fine lady. But in his belt, a gun he carried, and it drove her crazy. But my mother was a lady who chose to stay. Yes, my mother was a lady every day. Well, my mother, she came to die when I was just 18. And to this day, well, I still cry. She was my good thing. The psycho rider, well, he ran off with my bro's lady. Yes, she stood by just long enough, 'cause she left her babies. Well, my brother, now he's a farmer down in Hutchinson, Kansas. That psycho rider, he's not the charmer. He's past his chances. And as for me, well, I've been a gangster and a psycho rider. A genuine hood and a common prankster, and I tried to get higher. But my mother was a lady who would have stayed. Yes, my mother was a lady to a dying day. But my mother was a lady to a dying day.
The coolest radio station in the world, Radio Ice, from Independent TV and Radio Scotland.
Next up is Daniel Kaur, questions.
What's the point? Is it all just a game? Happy or sad, honor or shame? Will there ever be an end? Will the questions never cease? Oh God, must I die to find relief? Is this a blessing or is it a curse? And is there a better or is it only getting worse? There's so much to know in a lifetime to learn, but today begins forever. Everyday grind. Are we body or soul? Reason or rhyme? Will the answers come too late? Will the answers come at all? Oh God, is this nature's fatal flaw? Is this a blessing or is it a curse? Is there a better or is it only getting worse? There's so much to know in a lifetime, but today begins forever. Where am I? Is this heaven or hell? I threw stones at the sky, as the skyline fell. Now I'm standing in the eye of all that I'd presumed to know. Oh God, all I have of home is hope. Is this a blessing or is it a curse? Is there a better or is it only getting worse? So much to know in a lifetime. Today begins forever. Today begins forever. Today we live forever. Today begins forever. Oh, today.
Now playing. Linda Bruner, Rainy Night in Georgia.
To spend the night. Heavy rain falling. Seems I hear your voice calling. It's alright. Rainy night in Georgia. A rainy night in Georgia. Lord, it feels like it's raining all over the world. I feel like it's raining all over the world. Start it over, I got an idea. A rainy night in Georgia. A rainy night in Georgia. Lord, it feels like it's raining all over the world.
Track playing now. Semi-automatic, Monster.
With a monstrous perspective is how you're viewing me. The constant social rejection is nothing new to me. It's something usually I would let go, but there's an echo. Every time you let me just go, but no, I can't go anywhere without being the kid with the sickness. I'm falling deep in the hole at the center of attention. My scars are deep to the soul. When you said it, you meant it. Just because I'm reaching my goals, don't tell me you didn't. What is it that makes you stare? What's so different about me? What is it that makes you scared? What's so different about me? Having albinism doesn't make you inhuman. Have you ever ruined a family reunion by simple confusion? Huh? Yo, how they gon' categorize me? I skip through the bullshit and I write these passionate lines. If I listen to you, then I would be wasting my time. Don't run away from me, I'm just afraid it's you. Hey, it's you. I am. When I open my eyes,
all I see is this blood on you. The monster.
I am.
The monster.
When I'm closing my eyes,
all I see is this blood on you.
I spent my whole life trying to be somebody. Now I'm not just anybody. But from my past experiences, don't trust anybody. I'm thinking outside the box. Tell me why you live inside it. About to go load the Glock. Help me go and kill society. Filled with anxiety, fascinated with irony. Picking me as a target, but you miss me entirely. Pages ripped from my diary, words written in blood. Hatred entered in silence, no idea where it was. How you gon' sit here and judge me when you don't know nothing about how it feels to not be able to come out when the sun is out? You think that I'm fussing about this shit, but it's getting to me. The people that come around are the people that didn't know me. Walking through the hallways, feeling the distance. I hate you, that's what they all said, feeling resentment. I just listen to send me. I don't trust the imposters. I've come to the knowledge that you're becoming a problem. Please don't fuck with the monster. I am. When I open my eyes,
All I see is this blood on you. The monster.
I am.
The monster.
When I'm closing my eyes,
All I see is this blood on you.
I am. Now ever since that 11th, I always knew I was different. It was just a coincidence that it coincided with my pigment, with everything I was given, and every word I depicted. I shot to become the greatest, but only became a victim. You keep pushing me to the stage where I probably would kill. It's ironic how throwing shade still bothers me still. You know, because the fact I'm albino and all, going through minor withdrawals. When can we finally resolve all of these problems and make amends? It was hard just to make a friend. Apprehensions, offenses, I often would take defense. I often would play the fence. I never did have the courage, but since I picked up this pen, I never have had to worry. I am. When I open my eyes,
I hate you because I don't agree with what you do, because you never seem to have a clue what's wrong.
Now playing Josh Woodward, I Hate You.
Writing with your left hand like it's right. I think you're gonna start a fight tonight if you're not careful. And there's only 1 in 10 of us that's broken. Why can't you just use your right hand like a normal joke can? I hate you, 'cause every time you're picking up a pen, you're only trying to get the children to copycat you. You're a sinner. The Bible spells it out in black and white. Why you think we read it from left to right? Is that an accident? 'Cause the scribes who wrote the Bible saw the link. They never would have let their hands get smeared up in the ink. Oh, and some say it's genetics that makes you who you are. They lie and say you haven't got a choice, but you can learn to use the chosen hand. Sloppy writing's not the end. I hate you, 'cause you always wanna rub it in my face. All you lefties never seem to know that there's a time and there's a place. Well, I hate you, and equal rights we're never gonna part with. Why you think we called them rights to start with? They ain't for you. Well, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Well, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
You're listening to Independent TV and Radio Scotland, Channel Radio Ice.
Next up is Redneck Surfers, L'Amour.
Where you walk, I want it, what one has soul.
Next up is Josh Woodward, Release.
Will break. And every day you give and I take. I'm living the best that I can, but fate never followed my plans. I'm holding you back so I want you to pack up and grow. Everything you've done is great, but your back has been feeling exhausted from all of the weight. I'll carry this burden myself. Just put me up high on a shelf. Think of me fondly, but please move beyond me and go. There's so much that you wanna do. The world is just waiting for you, but I'm holding you down from the dreams that you found in a life that you left when we met. So please just escape before my resolve goes away, and I ask you to stay.
Next we have Jeff Hurley, Gimme Love.
Oh.